Doing good, really good. We got into the biggest difference between this team between now and last year. Kendall Briles touched on it in Friday morning's media session, is trust in the quarterback, belief in the quarterback. And you know, I focused a little bit more on the fan base and media members trusting KJ Jefferson this year because of what they saw last year. Kendall Briles made it seem that the team and the coaches were, you know, kind of looking at it identically the same way. I mean, because I don't know if you can really trust somebody in this sport at that position until they do it in a game. Is that, you know, if I were to ask you, and I don't want to put you on the spot like, you know, the number one difference between this and last year, but trust in the quarterback has got to be near the top of the list.
Well, it is, and I think I mentioned it before. I mean, he just looks the part right now. Again, we don't know till they go up against Cincinnati, and we'll see. You know, Sam Pittman said, I think it was Saturday, he talked about the fact that last year with the passing game, Jefferson would make one quick read to Traylon Burks, and if he wasn't open, he'd run. And he says he's much more disciplined now. He's really checking through his reads, and they've got a lot of options to throw to. And he's very disciplined. I think it helps that the offensive line is blocking better, gives you more time. But he's just more disciplined with those reads and is throwing it more and running less. You know, I just think when you see that happen out there, it's got to affect the players. But then I noticed something, you know, this bunch, I don't know what the name of this group is that Saul Radler is involved in, that they do all this stuff that you can generally only get if you pay money and join up on the U of A website. But they occasionally put this stuff up on Twitter and you can look at it. I don't know if you saw this, Phil, but they got up behind KJ and Jalen Catalon probably at the end of that scrimmage. And Catalon was talking to him, and he said, "You know, we've got to be in charge of our rooms." And I assume he meant offense room, defense room. And he said, "We know what the standards are, and we got to talk to them when the standards aren't there." But he said, "You have to be careful. You got to point out your own mistakes where you fell short of the standards." And I thought it was interesting that Catalon was there, sort of talking to KJ, and KJ was, yes, I got it right, yes. So these are the two guys leading this team right now. And you go back to this idea, Pittman said this, about guys getting along and buying into each other as teammates. That doesn't always happen. And a lot of times, the fans, and even though those of us in the media, we can't know that because we're not in the practices. We're not in those rooms. But it really looks good right now from that standpoint.
You've been around, well, I got asked this differently because of how you just put this. You're not always at practice, or you don't get a chance to watch every practice. You know, but I mean, this time of the year, preseason camp is all in-team competition. You know, competition within the same position, competition with guys that, you know, might have been good friends, and they'll all throw out the term iron sharpens iron and all of that. What I'm hearing from you is that sometimes you end up with teammates that sort of like root against another guy because they want that job. And in that case, a lot of times it's not, you know, those teams end up without having a lot of leaders because they're probably made up more of individuals worried about their own performance and own statistics and those sort of things. Like, I never hear that from KJ. I don't even hear that from the offense necessarily, because I hear Kendall Briles talk so openly about, well, we're going to do what the defense gives us. You know, if they play against the run, we'll throw. If they play against the pass, we'll run. KJ's not the kind of play, and Briles touched on, you know, who cares about the statistics. I always get the sense from KJ, never cares about the stats. It's all about the win and the loss. That's the kind of leadership that I think you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it some. Again, we get these little. I appreciate the fact that even though they don't let us go to these scrimmages, they'll put little video clips up that you can look at if you get on Twitter and Facebook, and they put up some clips from that scrimmage, and I thought this was interesting, guys. Pittman comes in there, and he basically starts off announcing that the defense had bounced back. And look, that is important. As long as I've done this job, coaches have told me you don't want one side of the ball to dominate over the other. So here he is saying, yeah, the offense won that first scrimmage, the defense won this one. And he gets into some things that they did, more sacks and some things like that. But before it's over, he ends up talking about all the things the offense did, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, 5 or 6 touchdown passes, 2 of them really long balls, and then you get a chance, and this is where Pittman says this stuff. We didn't see it, but when you then look at these video clips and you see that what he said is actually what happened, then you're going, wow, okay, he said that, and this is exactly what happened. There was a moment in that scrimmage where Malik Hornsby threw a 25-yard touchdown pass just short over the middle to Warren Thompson. It was a great throw. It had to be right on target or it's incomplete because the coverage was great. And you see things like that, and you're going, yeah, even in a scrimmage in which the head coach says the defense kind of won the day on little things, you still see a lot of positives. And so, again, I'm always hung up on, I don't want to, and my 2 sons were over last night, and they don't ask too much about it, but they started asking me about stuff, and I said, look, I can't say for sure. There's so much I don't see, but we're seeing more of that. And that's what I like. When somebody tells me something, and then I see evidence of it, I start to think, okay, he's shooting straight with me. And that's what I see from Sam Pittman.
I want to believe everything he says, but you're right. I mean, sometimes you're never quite sure whether you're being, whether everything's being inflated or pumped up, or it's just, speaking to people's expectations or things like that. And without the ability to watch practice on a routine basis, and I mean all of practice, to where you have a sense of what it is you're watching instead of what the coaches are telling you. Have you found it? I mean, they have a really tough schedule. Every year is a tough schedule. We know that. But adding Cincinnati, adding BYU, even Liberty, although, Liberty coming into Fayetteville ought to be a win. Are you finding it difficult? Now, we haven't done preseason projections, wins and losses for Arkansas. A lot of others have done that. But when you look at the schedule, Mike, are you finding it difficult to predict, like, what's a win and what's a loss? Because so many of these games look tight. And I mean like 5 points or less. I'm not sure which way to lean on most of these games.
Right now I am. I think I always place a lot of value in what I see in that first game because it answers so many questions. It's almost like with the basketball team, and we heard all that stuff going from the moment he put together that group of guys, and we had all this hype. But then, even though it's not the real season, when they go over to Europe and you actually see them playing games against an opponent, now you start to get an idea. And that's why this first, football game against Cincinnati is going to answer a lot of my questions. I want to see if the O-line is a lot better. I want to see if their pass blocking is better. I want to see if KJ's got the time to check off 3 reads before he throws the pass to the third option. I want to see if the running game is that balanced. Do you really have maybe 3 guys, 2 right now maybe, that are going to go out there and make things happen? And then you look at those trouble spots. Is the opponent going to run on them because the D-line, has got some injuries? What about tight end? You're putting a lot on one guy. Is there any depth at all behind him? And does Trey Knox deliver the goods? So you're looking at all these things and trying to find answers to questions. And if you get positive answers, then I can say, yeah, I think maybe they'll do well in some of these other games. I think the BYU game is going to be really tough. That's a road game. You never know how every team is different. They react differently. And so now you're going out on the road and you got to produce in that game, and it's a huge early game, so we'll see.
One thing that might not be a question mark is what we're getting reports out of camp is Hudson Clark. Apparently, from what I've read, he's had 4 INTs during this fall camp. Jay and Catalon spoke very highly of him. Is he kind of securing himself as a starting cornerback right now?
Maybe. I tried to look at this based on what I saw with these. There's so many options there at corner. But you got Hudson Clark, who's just this bounce-back guy. Remember, he just tore it up as a true freshman, then kind of went backwards a little bit last year. And now apparently he's come back. So what they're saying right now is he is probably one of the 2 starters. And then the other one, I think, according to Pittman right now would be, well, no, it's not Pittman. It's who was in the scrimmage, starting in the scrimmage. And that was Ladarius Bishop. So those are the 2 guys, but you got, Chavis, you got McLaughlin, you got, Parker, you got Johnson. So there's 4 or 5 guys in the mix there, but Hudson Clark is the one that's standing out. And it started kind of early on. Remember when they had that early kind of 2-minute drills? Offense is behind. If they score, they win. If they don't, the defense wins. And they get down close to the goal line, and Hudson Clark comes up with a pick. And, even Catalon had to admit, if he had been KJ, he would have thrown that pass. He looked open. And Hudson Clark did a good job of kind of disguising where he was, and then he read the throw, read the route, and jumped the route, and came up with the pick.
On the other side, news over the weekend of Jaquelin Crawford putting his name into the transfer portal. Didn't really give you all that much. I think played in 7 games last year, kind of garbage time for a lot of them. Just not enough room there for him in the wide receiver room?
This, I think, is 3rd transfer. I mean, here's a kid that clearly wants to play. You look at who's ahead of him: Warren Thompson, Hazelwood, Matt Landers, Keytron Jackson, Jaden Wilson, Bryce Stevens, Satenga, Bakke, McAdoo, even the freshmen. I mean, I don't think he had an option if he wanted to play. So these are good signs, really, that somebody that came in here as a transfer hoping to get playing time, you just have better options. And I wish him the best luck. I hope he goes somewhere where he's going to get on the field. But it is a sign of the depth in that room.
Call it reading the room. I wonder if it'll be the last transfer out of that position. It's a deep group. It's a deep group, and I can't remember like a position. And look, again, it's we'll see what happens when they get on the field. But what we're hearing about Warren Thompson taking big steps forward, and again, you want to trust what the coaches are telling you. Matt Landers sounds like a guy that you want on the field, split out wide, quite often. And Jaden Hazelwood and Keytron Jackson. Like I can't remember a position or a group that has gone from question mark to hell yes so quickly. I mean, KJ went from question mark to hell yes in like a month, but that was during the season. This has all happened like during spring ball to now, where the going thought is that wide receiver at Arkansas is a weapon, and not just 1 or 2. You might have 3 or maybe 4.
Yeah, there are 9 guys. There are 9 guys at wide receiver that, if you ended up with a couple of injuries, some of those freshmen would come into play. So there's 9 guys overall that the coaches have talked about, mentioned, guys that have actually done things in scrimmages, come up with touchdown passes or whatever. 9 guys at wide receiver. You love that depth.
That's a good number to go into the season with. Mike, I know you got a lot going on at Pig Trail Nation. We'll let you go. Thanks for your time as always.
Online is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. That's Believe, BLEAV 50. Bet online, where the game starts.